welcome to another episode of Mine Planning Matters, a podcast where we talk about where the industry gets it both right and wrong when it comes to mine planning and mining engineering. This podcast is not just for mine planners, it's for everyone who has anything to do with mine plans, from those who create them, to those who execute them, and all the way up to those who endorse or sign off on them. My name is Mark Bowater, Director and Founder of Australian Mining Consultancy Insignia Mining, and I speak from experience, having been involved in mine planning for over 30 years. Hello everyone, and welcome to another episode of Mine Planning Matters. In this episode, I want to go back and I want to talk about stochastic scheduling again. And I actually want to talk about an issue that comes up in short terms when we apply stochastics to short-term scheduling. Now, in one of the earlier episodes, I talked about which mine plan do I think we should be running stochastics over first. And the fact that a lot of people, the first thing that comes to mind is that they want to run stochastics over life of mine plans, where my perspective is that one of the most important plans we have is about the 12-week plan, a three-month plan, because that sets you up for success in your execution plan, your weekly plan. And so I think that that's where we should start with stochastics, and I discussed that in an earlier episode. Now that then will lead to the obvious question in terms of when we run stochastics, we might run 1,000 plans or 100 plans, but we run multiple of them. And therefore, depending on the size of our mine and the flexibility of our mine, we will get multiple schedules with different sequences, different paths in them, with equipment working in different places. And so when we get multiple schedules with different sequences, which one are we going to use as our plan? Because we still have to go through the processes of communicating our plan at like a weekly plan meeting or something like that, and talking about, okay, what is the sequence of our equipment? How much ore do we think we're going to produce over the next period? What decisions do we need to make? And so we are going to have multiple plans with different sequences. Which one are we going to choose to put forward as the plan for everyone to follow? And that's a really good question, because in actual fact then that there's a range of answers, right? One approach would be to say, what sort of a risk profile do we want to take? Do we want to take the P50 approach, in which case we might actually just pick the plan that falls closest to the P50, which would be the mean. We might want to have a little bit more stretch in our plans, go a little bit riskier, and so we might say, well, let's take the plan that falls closest to the P40, so the 40th percentile. Or some other number. So that's one possibility. Another possibility might be that we might take the plan that is the most common of the unique sequences. So, out of 100 plans, there might be 15 different unique solutions, for example, in terms of the sequencing, the path. And therefore we might say which one of those came back the most in the 100. There might be one particular sequence that 10 out of the 100 plans came up with, whereas the others were less than 10. And so we could choose that one with the most common. That would be another solution. Another approach might be to take the critical path. And that's, of course, if we know what the critical path is in our schedules. And that's a discussion for another podcast sometime, is around critical paths and plans, because critical paths are very easy to recognise in a one-off project. Maybe not so easy in a mine. But, if we know what the critical path is, then maybe we go, well, there's some real logic here around minimising gaps in our Gantt chart sequence on the critical path, because gaps on the critical path just slow down our recovery of ore. So another solution might be, let's take the schedule that has the smallest sum of the gaps on the critical path. Or, maybe another approach, and probably my preferred approach in terms of pure logic, is that I've talked about the fact that mine plans are about understanding risk. And so therefore, maybe the best plan out of the 100 is the one that has the lowest risk in it. And for me, risk can sort of be measured by float or lag between activities, where we have a whole lot of activities crammed on top of each other with minimal gaps between them. Then that's high risk once variability comes along and everything changes. And so, maybe the plan is the one with the most amount of float or lag in it. Now, of course, that's easier said than done. That's way easier said than done. But that's just a sort of a conceptual look, and there would be others. And so this question around which plan do we choose is actually is a good question. And I think it actually points me towards the longer term direction of mine planning in terms of where we really need to go. And that is that, as I've said, I think a key element out of mine plans is decisions. Mine plans, sure, they're for, predicting budget numbers in terms of, what sort of quantities of ore we're going to get and what sort of things we need to purchase, how much equipment do we need and everything. But I still fundamentally think that mine plans are about decisions and making the right decisions, the best decisions in terms of the best way to operate this mine. And so therefore, if mine plans are about decisions and we get variability, then in actual fact, maybe the long-term solution is that every time we get to a decision point, we need to rerun the plan because things have varied. Rates have changed. Equipment is in different places to where we thought it was going to be. And so therefore, maybe the real answer is that every time we have a decision, we need to rerun the plan. And so then the question is that in these days of automation, digitalization and information collection, how do we set ourselves up so that that's an easy process to do, is that we've collected all the information, we just hit a button and we recalculate the plan each time. Thanks for listening to Mine Planning Matters and my thoughts on mine planning. This podcast is for the benefit of the mining industry, and that's you. So I'd love to hear from you through the comments section, and please feel free to let me know any topics you'd like discussed in future episodes. You'll find much more content at our Insignia Mining website, and if you find any of our content valuable, please let your mining colleagues know so they can benefit as well.